Often in optics we deal with so-called multi-layer structures which contain many slabs of different materials. We here have a tool to simulate the optical response. So to access this, we just need to click on the multi-layers button and we get a window which contains on the left the various controls of the simulation and on the right the graph that will display the spectra. First, we have a selector between the spectral mode or angular mode. The two different modes will change the behavior of this graph over here. We have the spectrum selector with its number of points and the number of angles that we want to compute. Below we have all the different polarizations that we can toggle on and off depending on what we want to display. And we have the structure itself that is defined first through the material of the substrate. I'm going to leave it at 1 for now. And then we can add layers to it. So for instance, I'm going to add a layer of, let's say, 30 nanometers of gold, for instance. So gold is there in the visible range. And we see the response of this structure. Since we are in the spectral mode, we can change the angle of incidence through the slider at the bottom. And we see, in this case, the two polarization splitting apart, of course, with the average between each one. We can remove some curves from our graph and can change the refractive index of the substrate, and we can see instantly the effect. And of course, this is not limited to one layer, we can add several. So for instance, I'm going to add a spacer of 10 nanometers of index 1.5 and another layer of 30 nanometers of gold. And we now see the response of this structure. If I were to increase this value, we would quickly get a cavity, but for which we have the different resonant modes here. And of course, its behavior depends on the angle. Now this is in the spectral mode. I can switch to the angular mode, and what we see in this case, there are the same curves, except that we see them for the various angles of incidence from 0 to 90 degrees, and the slider is used in this case to browse the various wavelengths. So switching back to this. Additionally, when we have this, we can, if we want to, look at the colors that this corresponds to. To do this, we first need to click on the graph itself and press O on the keyboard. We have the graph options dialog that appears, and if we click on the spectral colors here, we have the rendering of the colors in full intensity based on the D65 illuminant, and here normalized colors.